Jimmy Neutron, to this day, continues to be remembered as one of the best Nicktoons ever made. During the early 2000s, Nickelodeon was on top of the freaking world, with arguably their strongest lineup of shows to ever exist on the network. Rugrats, SpongeBob, The Fairly OddParents, and Jimmy Neutron. I remember some of the biggest events in kids television history at the time were the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour crossovers. God, those were such a blast. And sure, they had other shows sprinkled in too, but these were the shows that defined the network, making it easily my choice in kids channels over Cartoon Network or Disney Channel. And Nickelodeon knows when they have something special on their hands. That's why they go on to bleed every success they've ever known dry to the bone. I mean, most of these shows just went on way longer than they needed to. The Fairly OddParents had such a slow and painful death where they were desperately trying to bring in new characters, only to ditch them next season for a new character, completely disregarding clearly established continuity from previous seasons. It was just a mess. And to this day, they're still throwing out live-action reboots and shit all that continues to drag this franchise into the mud. And then there's Rugrats with an original run of 9 seasons, 3 movies, 2 spin-off shows, a recent reboot. They just don't know when to quit. And don't even get me started on SpongeBob. So then that begs the question, what the hell happened to Jimmy Neutron? Sure, they had a Planet Sheen spinoff for anyone wanting to develop a brain tumor, but what about the rest of us? Well, there was a 4th season in the works. Nickelodeon never actually canceled the show, but as we all know, this 4th season never ended up making it to air. Oh, and apparently they were also in talks to develop a modern-day reboot of the show, until a Nickelodeon rep pointed out that the characters weren't diverse enough. So what, Jimmy Neutron ended cause Libby isn't black enough? No, Jimmy Neutron ended cause of this man. Let's set the scene. It's the late 80s, and John A. Davis and Keith Alcorn were struggling to make a name for themselves, mostly focusing on small-scale projects like computer-animated commercials under the name DNA Productions.
Hi, I'm Paul.
No, Paul, we're not there yet, stop. These were only small-time gigs, but on the side, they'd be submitting more personal projects to film festivals. The most important of these being Runaway Rocket Boy, our first iteration of Jimmy, then known as Johnny Quasar. And something about this Rocket Boy really speaks to an onlooker, Steve Odenkirk, who's so impressed, he decides he wants to partner up with the duo between his own studio, O Entertainment. And then they made Jimmy Neutron? No. Then they made some cheesy-ass Christmas specials. But to be fair, at the time, people were just soaking that shit up. And it was some good experience. Being their most successful projects to date, Steve Odenkirk is finally able to use this to leverage a meeting with Nickelodeon to officially pitch Johnny Quasar. And Nickelodeon loves this idea so much, they don't just want a show. They want to launch this franchise with an entire theatrical movie. I mean, that's an almost unheard of amount of trust in a brand new IP. But after the massive success of the first 2 Rugrats movies, yeah, I'm sure Nickelodeon couldn't wait to dive back into that box office bank. And in 2001, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius blasts into theaters, showing kids everywhere a world we've never really seen before. One where the kids were in charge, and childlike imagination can run rampant without adult supervision. Kids rule was a strong theme of Nickelodeon's brand back in 2001. And with Jimmy Neutron, you could really feel it. I mean, the closest comparison we had at the time was probably Dexter's Laboratory. And I mean, sure, they're both young super geniuses, but Dexter's mainly focused on the chaotic dynamic of him and his sister, who blows his experiments to smithereens.
There's doom and gloom while things...
But with Jimmy Neutron, the sci-fi gadgets weren't being sabotaged by an annoying sibling. They carried the show following the movie. Each episode tackled some wild invention from the perspective of what a kid would want their sci-fi world to be. What if you could just shrink yourself to sneak out of the house? Or hypnotize your parents into thinking it was your birthday every day? Who needs to study when you could just chew a piece of gum and in doing so you've memorized an entire book? Well, the result is usually these characters finding themselves in over their heads. Cause at the end of the day, all the brains in the world won't change the fact that Jimmy's just a kid. I always loved tuning in to see what kind of wacky inventions Jimmy was gonna whip up next. Looking back, I realize I've seen every episode of this show, just as they aired. And I remember it striking me odd that the show just kind of disappeared one day.
Paul?
This wasn't just another show getting canceled. I mean, we had just come down from the high of 2 back-to-back Jimmy Timmy Power Hour specials that killed in the ratings. And like I said, Nickelodeon promoted the shit out of these, and we loved it. The highest rated episode of the show is one of these specials. So again, what happened here? So picture this. Your DNA Productions and your studio just released a hit film that gets nominated for the first ever Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. You are at the top of your game. What can we expect from you next? And this search for finding their next big hit leads to an idea for their next theatrical film, a story about a boy who learns to appreciate compassion and teamwork through getting lectured by the ants he was just peeing on. The Ant Bully was DNA Productions' next big budget project. I mean, what is there to say about this movie? It's kinda bad, and not bad in a good way where it's fun to watch and make fun of, just extremely mid. I mean, it's not the worst experience in the world, but neither is a staph infection, and you don't see me begging to go through that again. A boy named Lucas gets terrorized by his local neighborhood bully and struggles to communicate this to his parents, causing him to feel pretty isolated and just in general act like a little bitch. He takes these frustrations out on the ants in his yard, cause what are they gonna do about it? They're gonna shrink him and force him to work in their colony so he can learn some damn compassion, you fucking psychopath. Through this experience, Lucas learns the value of teamwork and uses it to take out the local neighborhood bully by convincing the other neighborhood kids to team up against him. Then he hugs his mom. I mean, it was serviceable. Nowhere near as good as Jimmy Neutron, but it's a way to burn through 90 minutes. But it was just not the right time to release this movie. Not enough time had passed since Disney and DreamWorks' cutthroat battle against their movies, Ants and A Bug's Life, coming out in the same year. This just felt like another Ant movie. The combination of all this was spelling out a substantial loss for DNA Productions, who saw the writing on the wall a little too late. They laid off a large amount of their staff before Ant Bully even hit theaters. But it wasn't enough. This movie bombed hard. Bad enough that they were forced to shut down the entire studio, stopping the production of Jimmy Neutron Season 4 in its tracks. And according to the original writing team, they wanted to capitalize on every ounce of potential magic Jimmy Neutron had for this season. Jimmy taking the class on a field trip to the moon, focusing more on Jimmy and Cindy's relationship. Sure, you can find some of these unfinished episode scripts online, but we'll never truly get to experience the original vision of Season 4 these creators had. And it's all cause these fucking guys thought another Ant movie was a good idea. Fucking Tom Hanks, Gary Goetzman, John A. Davis. Wait, Tom Hanks? As in, the Wilson Ball lovin' ping pong master rootin'est tootin'est cowboy in the Wild West? Tom Hanks? Tom Hanks? Yeah, so apparently the true story goes like this. Tom Hanks is reading a book, The Ant Bully, to his son and thinks, hey, this should be a movie. And to him, there's no better person for the job than the creator of Jimmy Neutron himself. Did they work together before or something? Nope. Tom just saw Jimmy Neutron on TV and thought, yeah, this is good, but where's all the ants? So Davis gets a random phone call one day and it's freaking Tom Hanks proposing the idea that you should turn this book into a movie. Davis's first thought was, rightfully so, a bit skeptical that audiences would be on board with yet another bug movie. But over time, the idea grew on him. Wait, Davis, no. It's different enough because the protagonist is a boy and not one of the ants? Fuck off. You sure you're not just a little starstruck that Tom Hanks just commissioned you to make a movie? Well, regardless, Hanks agrees to fund the project and becomes an official producer of the film. Well, he obviously didn't fund it enough. Where is he, Tom? Where is Paul? He's dead. He's dead and you killed him, Tom. You fucking monster. Are you happy now? Now that you got to live out your sick, twisted ant boy fantasies? Cause Paul's dead, Jimmy's dead, Carl's dead, Sheen's dead. Oh wait, no, somehow he's the only one to make it out of here unscathed. Yeah, so thankfully, when DNA Production shut down, Odenkirk comes in to save the day. Remember him? He was co-producing Jimmy Neutron under O Entertainment and absorbed the staff into his own studio. They'd go on to make Planet Sheen and Back of the Barnyard. So at least they weren't all out of a job.
Hey folks, viewer mail time again. Dear Pig.
Are you ashamed of the legacy your show was built under?
Well, the answer is yes. Keep those cards and letters coming.
Okay, maybe we'll never get that season 4 of Jimmy Neutron. But hey, it was great while it lasted. At least we can always look back on this show knowing it never overstayed its welcome. Jimmy Neutron can live on as one of the best and only Nicktoons to not get beaten as a dead horse, milked dry, past its prime. You can jump into any episode of the show and know you're in for a quality time. You'll never have to say, only the first 4 seasons are worth watching, or I can't believe they thought those changes were a good idea. And while it is true that we were never really given an ending to the show, it's really not too late. Who knows? There were plans for a second theatrical movie that they never ended up finishing. Why not turn that into the show's finale? They did it with Invader Zim and Hey Arnold. We honestly don't need another reboot. But I think us fans of the original show would absolutely cherish a proper send-off to these amazing characters and their stories. Just do us all a favor. Don't let this guy anywhere near it.